Ray Kaplan standing by from the Kaplan Law Firm. Nobody knows more about the student loan stuff than Ray. And good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, guys.
Welcome back. Andrea's here.
Hi, Ray.
And Scott's in for Nick. All right, so the Biden folks say $6 billion more in student debt, either canceled or potentially canceled. What's the story?
Right. So I think this brings the total to about $143 billion for about 3.96 million Americans. And so basically, this is all stuff that's been in place for a while now. They're just kind of rolling out how many people are actually getting the loan forgiveness under these executive orders. So these are the fixes that they were making to a statute that actually went into effect in 2007 under Bush. And that was the Public Service Loan Forgiveness section of the Higher Education Act, which really allows people who work in the public sector like police officers, firefighters, public school teachers, social workers, et cetera, doctors, nurses, to make payments for 10 years on their federal loans. And then no matter what the balance is forgiven tax-free. And a lot of people either didn't know that that program even existed or they didn't really know how to access that program. And so what they did is they made it easier and they allowed us to go back and get people credit retroactively for years that they were employed in the public sector. So I think right now what the Biden administration is doing is basically telling everybody and kind of conveying to the public, look, you know, we've done a lot when it comes to making loan forgiveness more accessible for borrowers.
So you're a teacher and you got a bunch of student debt. This could be you.
Oh,
student
absolutely.
Loan debt.
Yep, absolutely. If you work in the public sector and you're a teacher, even if you're a professor at Northwestern or, you know, one of our local universities or colleges.
Did they start with the people who had the longest outstanding debt, Ray?
You know, so they would go in batches because a lot of our clients fit into this executive order. So we were really scrambling to get a lot of these applications in because you had to do something affirmative in order to get the relief. Oftentimes you had to do a federal consolidation and then submit an application verifying your employment within the public sector. And the way it worked was they were starting with people who had the oldest loans first, and then they would kind of move through those. And so the executive order that we're referring to was actually extended to April 30th. So it's still available if you have federal loans, even if you're not sure or you're not sure if this applies to you. I would say 9 times out of 10 when I talk to people, it does apply to them. And so there's a lot of relief still available even now up until April 30th.
Okay, so where does that money come from? Where does the forgiveness money come from?
Well, it's basically, these are loans that one would owe to the Department of Education. And when the loans are forgiven, it just means that that borrower no longer has to pay back on that particular balance. So it doesn't, it's just that the loans are forgiven and the borrower gets the loans forgiven tax-free. So I guess it's really at the cost of the taxpayer because essentially that's money that's owed to the Department of Education that's being forgiven.
So is this the end of it between now and Election Day, or is there more? I mean, obviously this is beneficial to the Biden side of the equation as he campaigns, but it's also a huge relief to people in the public sector. And Ray, I know you get this too. I totally understand why a lot of people are aggravated by any of this because They go, look, I paid my loans back. That doesn't change the fact that this is available to those who apply and are granted access to these programs. So, be mad at the politicians. Don't be mad at the people who are accessing these, I guess is my point.
Well, absolutely. And actually, a lot of the loan forgiveness also applies to people in the private sector, believe it or not, because what people don't know about federal loans, and this is written into the law, this goes all the way back to 2007 and even before. If you're on an income-driven repayment plan and you're in the private sector, those loans get forgiven after 20 years for undergrad, 25 years for grad school. So all federal loans get forgiven at some point unless you wind up paying them off, and many people do. In fact, most people wind up paying back more on their loans than they borrowed, and so the Department of Ed makes a lot of money on these loans. But it's just written into the law that there are times when loans get forgiven for certain sectors and certain types of people. For example, if you're disabled, you can get your loans forgiven. If you're retired and disabled, you're eligible to have your loans forgiven. So there are just different provisions under the law to get that relief.
Well,
people in the private sector get it too.
I don't want to incentivize people to slow pay. That's not beneficial, right? Just say if I could stretch it out to 25 years.
They can stretch it out to 25 years, and a lot of private loans go 20, 25 years too. So it really just depends, on what the contract is. But with federal loans, there's a lot more flexibility built into federal loans than there are oftentimes with private loans. And oftentimes private loans, especially lately, the interest rates are much higher than they are with federal loans.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that there was a forgiveness point on those. But does the interest rate on these loans, whether you take 10 years, 5 years, or 20 years to pay them off, does the interest rate fluctuate too?
No. So for federal loans, it's a fixed interest rate set by Congress. And so right now, say for Parent Plus loans, those are, I think, at about 7.5%, and it's fixed. And the maximum is 25 years. So no matter what, if you have a balance after 25 years on that type of federal loan, it gets forgiven. And you do have to pay federal income taxes on the amount of loan forgiveness that you get. So the interest accrues the whole time, and then the loans are forgiven, and you pay taxes on the amount forgiven.
It's a lot of information, and frankly, I would highly recommend you have a professional help you. Nobody knows more about this stuff than Ray and her folks. How do people get a hold of you?
Sure. Get a hold of us at financialrelief.com, raycaplan.com, or give us a call, 312-294-8989.
And that's RAEKAPLAN.
Exactly.
Yeah, raycaplan.com. I think I stepped on your answer to the question, though. Do you expect more of this before Election Day?
That's a really interesting question. I do expect there to be more of this because it's a really hot topic right now. And I expect, some of these orders will go through, some will sail through, like this latest one has, and others are going to be stopped by the Supreme Court. I think it just depends on how big the Biden administration decides to go with this. And they might try to go big because, it's a very competitive campaign season, and they're probably really trying to rally younger people and borrowers. So We'll see. I do think that there's going to be more to come.
Well, that's the benefit of incumbency. All right. So, Ray, hold the line for me if you would. I got to ask you for a loan off the air. Stand by just 1 second. Oh, right. She's not the bank. I forgot.
Just say no, Ray.